Hello and welcome to Wild Vittles. So today we are going to do fish tacos, redfish tacos, and they're going to be grilled. Lots of times you see them like tempura or things like that, but this is going to be grilled, and hopefully we're going to have it done in 20-ish minutes. So going to get started. What I have is 1/2 of a redfish fillet. I have just done a fillet. Should be no bones in it. There could be some rib bones in this section up in the front around the rib cage, some pin bones. And I've put some seasoning on it, a liberal amount of seasoning after patting it dry, and I've got some butter pats here. And I'm going to put this on the grill, and I've already got my skillet preheating as well. So pardon me while I put this on. All right, so what I've done now is I've got the fish. Let me see if I can see it. I want to make sure my camera angle is good. I've got that fillet in there. We're going to close that while it starts up. And that fish will take 10 or 15 minutes cooking on the half shell. I've got underneath it is the skin, and on a redfish, it's kind of like fingernails. Those scales are extremely thick and extremely rigid and are a good barrier for the heat while we kind of bake in this charcoal, almost like an oven. I put a chunk of hickory down in there, so it's going to have a little bit of a smoky flavor to it. My skillet, I have, I think it's a 12 or 14-inch skillet in there as well, and it has been preheating. I'm going to put some olive oil in there, and then we're going to start our onions. And I had put some butter on top of that fish, and it's already kind of dripping off and flaming up a little bit, kind of like Burger King. So I've got a couple onions. I may just put in 1.5. Oops, I dropped some here. Maybe kind of eyeballing how much. It was a big onion and a small onion. I'm going to do the onions first because the peppers, they give off a lot of water, and I want the onions to kind of caramelize first. So half a redfish is for 2 people. If you had a bigger party, I would put 2 redfish in there, but then you need to increase your volume of onions, as well as, my goodness, it's getting windy, as well as the peppers. I've got 2 peppers. I've got a red pepper and a green, red pepper and a yellow pepper, and 1.5 onions. It was really 1 big one and 1 small one, so maybe 2 smalls, something equivalent. But you'll start to figure out after you do this a while kind of what the volume looks like, because you just know that it's going to cook down. It's not going to be nearly as much when you get done, and you want probably 50-50 meat and almost like fajita mix, onions and peppers that go with it. So let's talk a little bit about red fishing while I'm waiting for this. I do my red fishing on the coast, but not like out in the beach and in the beachfront. I do it in the bayous, in the backwaters, but it's saltwater still. And I go out in a kayak, and I use artificial lures, generally soft plastics, with say a 1/8 head jig head. I'm fond of darker colors on the bodies because it's kind of universal. It'll work with like a yellow tail, so maybe a black body with a chartreuse tail works really well. I like paddle tails. The size will depend upon kind of the time of year and also the conditions. If it's really windy or there's a really strong current, you may need more weight, but I prefer like an 1/8 inch head, or 1/8 ounce head. I do that on either an open face spinning reel or a bait caster. For whatever reason, bait casters are more popular in Texas. It's a Texas thing. Bait casters are great, except if you're having to throw into the wind and you're going to end up bird nesting, which is when your reel keeps turning but your lure is not going out at the same time, and you'll spend half your time untangling your line. A spin cast is generally not problematic. But I go out generally in the mornings, in the cool of the morning. It's a hot day today. You can probably see me perspiring. Try to go out in an area where the tide is moving. High tide, low tide doesn't matter as long as you have access, but water moving because of tide or wind is really the most important thing, because for whatever reason the fish they react. When the water's moving, they're feeding. If the water's kind of stagnant and still, they're resting. So the tide apps or looking on the internet to find those times, and then looking at the observations of what the water's really doing, that's your friend. And so I go out and First thing in the morning, you're looking for kind of bait moving. You'll actually see fish jumping out of the water, small ones or shrimp, and they're trying to evade the predators like the fish that we're catching, redfish or speckled trout or flounder. And you're trying to get into the areas where there's ambush points. It could be along the grassline edge, along a reef, could be on a choke point, through a channel, whatever the case may be. They'll hide in those areas and patrol, and you want to throw your lure in there like an unsuspecting bait fish. I sometimes use Gulp makes this really neat thing that's looks like soft plastic, but it's kind of a more degradable material that's impregnated with a lot of smell, and they have a really cool Gulp shrimp. And you put that on a jig head, and it makes a really great lure as well. And either that or the swim bait, you're kind of jigging it, bouncing it along at an appropriate cadence for the time of year, generally a little faster in the summer, and in areas that a high percentage shot of when a redfish will be. Have your drag loosened so that it takes enough force but not too much force to be able to pull that line free so you don't snap your line. And you just go fishing, and you kind of cover the area that you think the fish will be in, and keep that lure in that profile or that water column where you think where those fish are going to be. And often it's like only 3 or 4 feet deep. It's pretty shallow. And when one hits, you will know. Redfish are the strongest fish I've ever seen. Pound for pound, perch and white bass are pretty strong, but redfish, I've never had a fish except a redfish that I think to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them into my kayak, because they're so strong. And whenever you get them close, they see that boat and they'll turn around and boy, they just run, and your drag just goes zzz, and man, that just gets my heart pumping. So I thoroughly enjoy red fishing. In Texas, where I'm at, we have what's called a slot limit, and so what that means is you can keep a fish that is bigger than 20 inches but smaller than 28. And the interesting thing about redfish is that they're born in the bayous. They grow up in the bayous as juvenile fish, and when they hit about 30 inches, they go out into the open ocean, and then they're breeders out there. So you hear people talk about bull reds. Bull reds are fish that are over 30 inches, and often people will catch them in the surf. And these are the big adults, and they're actually, they're the breeders that then, whenever they'll have the eggs and the fries, they call them, those wash back into the bayous, and the cycle starts over again. So, again, the limit is a slot, 20 to 28, and limit of 3, which is plenty. Because one fish is a pretty big meal. Often my wife and I will eat one side of one fillet. So, often I'll go out for a good day of fishing. I don't always catch all slot fish. I'll catch a lot of smaller fish. And generally I keep, 1 or 2, because I would like to keep it fresh. I do freeze, vacuum seal into my freezer, but it's not like to keep until next year. It's to keep like a couple weeks from now, a month from now, in an extreme case, maybe 2 months from now. Because I just think seafood's more delicate. So it's been 6 minutes. Let me check on my onions here. And they're getting good and brown. And that fish is getting a good kind of flakiness. All right, I think my onions, as you can kind of see, are a little bit browned. You can see also, if you could see, that my redfish is starting to turn white. And after about, maybe 10 minutes or so, it'll become flaky. What we're doing in this process of making fish tacos is essentially we're going to cook that fillet whole. And when it's good and flaky, we're going to take that meat and kind of break it up into pieces and put it into this skillet along with onions and peppers. And so I've already got my onions started. And I just wanted to get them cooked down a little bit. And now I'm going to put in the peppers. I've got yellow and red bell peppers that I've cut up just into strips. Let me make sure I get all those in there. And mix those about. And I would also like to put a little seasoning on here. And you can use anything, salt, pepper. You could use fajita seasoning. I use this Red River Ranch that Kent Rollins using, but it's like salt, pepper, probably paprika, a few other things. Don't be bashful with it. You want to mix it in enough that you can kind of see that it's there. Putting that on there is going to make it sweat a little bit, which is not a bad thing either. Now I'll see this all the way through to the mix being done. Essentially what we'll have when we're done is fish, onions, and peppers with seasoning. My wife in the house is going to be starting the taco. We're going to do hardshell tacos on these, and so she'll put them in the oven. I think it's like 225, 250, something like that, for like 5 minutes, and it crisps up our taco shells. And then we've got some pico de gallo, a little bit of cheese, whatever you would like to put on there. And you could do them on soft tacos as well. They could be corn or flour tortillas. But this will make a wonderful meal. And nice thing about tacos is it goes a long ways. You could have a pretty big party and really feed several people with one fish because you can kind of spread it out. We were on our honeymoon. I think it's our honeymoon. We went on a cruise and on an excursion, and they're like, go kayaking in a glass bottom kayak and have lobster fajitas. And we're like, okay, the kayaking sounds cool, and we're going to have lobster. We got out there, and the kayaking was cool, and we were able to see all the fish in the reef. But they took one lobster for what must have been 15 or 20 people and threw it into this fajita mix. And there was I probably got like 10 grams of lobster along with my onions and peppers for my fajita, which I learned that day that, tacos and fajitas can go a long ways. This same mix, in addition to being used for tacos, can be considered a fajita. It could also be put into quesadillas as well, and I've done that. If I do tacos and then the next day I still have leftovers, I'll make cheese quesadillas and put this in the mix like I would chicken or beef. So very, very good. It's been 10.5 minutes. Let me stir a little bit. And the onions and peppers take as long as they take. It will take a little bit longer since I did the onions first and then the peppers. If you did them at the same time, it would be faster, but your onions wouldn't be quite as much like the fajita type onions that you get at the restaurant, that have kind of got that blackened edge on them. Because the peppers have so much water in them, they would kind of steam and sweat, and as opposed to being that kind of seared. But if time is more important, it's not a big deal. We're going to have to do a bit of surgery when we get that fish out, because we're going to have to separate it from the skin, which is not hard. You just kind of lift it out, and then we're going to put the meat into the skillet and mix it up, and then really just get everything finished, kind of properly mixed, because by that time the fish will be done, and as well as the peppers and onions. So we're really just kind of making sure that everything is distributed. So okay, it's come time for getting the fish. I'm going to put a little bit more oil, just a little bit in there because my pan's getting a little dry. So now a bit of surgery. We're going to lift the fish out of there, put it on a plate, and then I'm going to remove the meat from the skin, because as I said, this is redfish on the half shell, so it's grilled, and on the bottom will be kind of a charred, scaly fish skin. So I'm going to lift this out gingerly. You want to make sure this doesn't break, or you're going to be done. All right, so as you can see, that's completely done all white. Maybe up in this section it might not be quite done, but it's going to be fine because we're going to throw it into the fire here, into the skillet. So I'm going to take my tongs, and we're going to kind of extract some and put it in, and we'll break it up. All right, so we've mixed that up. Now I've extracted it from the skin. You can see what's left over here. Now we just got to mix it up and finish the cook. So, oh crud. I should have put probably another fish in here, or another fillet, so it's going to be a little thin, but you'll be surprised how it'll spread out. So get this kind of broke up and mixed, and we're essentially done. I think for those that are watching this, you're going to be like, that's not much fish. I probably should have put another fillet in here. So when you do it, and you put that many peppers and onions in there. Put two fillets. This is a smaller slot too. I've done it before though, where it's like, my God, it's a lot of fish, and you couldn't even see like the vegetables. So it's a mix, right? All right, I think this is nearly done. I'm gonna put a little bit more seasoning, and we're doing hard shell tacos, some corn tacos, yellow corn. Putting those in the oven and getting those all finished up. So this is looking really good. And it's about 19 minutes right now. It won't be 19 minutes on the timer because I'm going to cut out a section of this where I have to run into the house and go get something. But the point is this is a pretty fast meal. Now, I did prep in advance and cut everything. So, you know, it's probably in total more like 30 minutes. All right. I'm pleased with that. I am going to shut this, go in the house, and I'm going to need a pot holder because this dude is hot. And so afterwards, I'll take some pictures and I'll actually put them on this part of the voiceover with some of the finished products. As you can see, you know, like really good tacos, a little bit of onions, peppers, very simple, some seasoning on it. Put on your whatever you'd like from a perspective of toppings, and you have a wonderful meal. And redfish done not just on the half shell, but on the half shell and a taco shell. So give it a try. Experiment. Go out, go fishing. Support conservation through the Coastal Conservation Association. Be a part of that, and be part of the support for the things that we love and enjoy. So with that, I hope you guys are having a good weekend. I know I am. And I hope you'll go out and try to improve your skills and be a better wild game cook. So good night and good luck.